So you're looking to buy your first home, but you're not quite sure what steps are involved. If this sounds like you, then you've come to the right place, because today we will be going through every single step on the home buying process. So by the end of this video, you'll be equipped with the knowledge and information to buy your first home. Just remember that anything that we talk about in this video is general advice only and not personal financial advice. You can read my full financial services guide in the description. So before you even start looking to buy your first home, the very first step is saving a deposit. And if you've already saved your deposit, you can simply skip this point and move on to the next point. I have timestamps down below. Something that helped me save my first deposit was setting myself a budget. This involves going through your transactions from the past 3 months and then looking line by line exactly where your money goes. And I'm not gonna lie, this first point can be quite daunting because you start to realize how all those tiny little $5, $10 expenses here and there really do add up at the end of the day. But it is a very necessary step if you do want to save a deposit. And really exciting news, I've actually launched a budgeting tool that you can use to do your budgeting, and it's called Billaroo. And the reason why I created it was I've tried so many different budgeting apps over the past couple of years, but I kept on going back to using a spreadsheet because I couldn't find one that did everything that I wanted it to do. And it is honestly the tool that I wish I had when I was saving my deposit for my first home. So if you would like to try Billaroo out for yourself for free, you can check out the link in the description below. This is how I do my budgeting every single month. First, I put in my income, investments, and expenses, and then I import my transactions from my credit card and my debit card, so it all shows up here. Then I make sure that all of my expenses are accurately categorized, like this, for example. And once I've categorized a few expenses, I can even use this auto-categorize feature, and it will automatically categorize my expenses the way that I've categorized them in the past, which is really cool. And then once I'm finished, I go to the overview tab, and it can show me how my expenses are actually going compared to my budget. And as we can see here, in this month, I spent quite a bit more on groceries, so I can simply click into this point, and I can see exactly how I spent over $100 more on groceries for this month. And this can just help me realign my spending with my budget. So if you'd like to check out Billaroo for yourself, you can check out the link in the description below. We're also building a bunch of new tools based on feedback from you. So I'm really excited to keep on iterating and building out this tool. So once you have your deposit saved, the next step is understanding how much you can borrow. The factors that determine exactly how much you can borrow from the bank are your income, expenses, and debt. So let's start off with income. The banks like to see that you have a steady paycheck coming in every single month. And when it comes to expenses, they do like to see that you are living below your means and you are able to save on your income every single month. So let's say, for example, you earn $6,000 after tax into your bank account every single month. The banks would generally like to see your mortgage repayments be no more than 30% of your income, which in this case would be $1,800 per month. But different banks do have different lending criteria, but something good to keep in mind. The next thing that they look at is debt. If you have any credit cards open, they actually look at the total credit card limit as a debt, even if you're someone like me who pays off the full balance owing on her credit cards every single month. Generally, your credit card limit can decrease your borrowing capacity by up to 6 times. So let's say, for example, you have a credit card limit of $15,000. That means it could decrease your borrowing capacity by $90,000. And that's why whenever I am looking to get a mortgage from the bank, I cancel any credit cards that I don't really need and I don't really use. And for the credit cards that I absolutely need, generally just one card, I reduce the limit as much as I can. If you have any other debts like a car loan or even a HEX debt, it may be a good idea to look into paying these off earlier, because these debts can also decrease your borrowing capacity. Generally, it's a good idea to pay down any high interest debt above 8%. So once you have your income, your expenses, and your debt in order, the next step is to get a pre-approval from the bank. And this is an application that you submit to the bank before your actual mortgage application. The way that this happens is you generally start talking to a mortgage broker or a bank, and you start getting an idea of exactly how much money you can borrow based on your income, expenses, and debt. For this point, I highly recommend getting a mortgage broker. Something that I didn't know when I was buying my first home is that mortgage brokers are actually free for you and me. And the reason why is because the banks pay them a commission. commission. And this commission that the banks pay the mortgage broker comes out of the bank's commission. So that means that the mortgage broker's commission doesn't get passed on to us, the customer. And the reason why it's a really good idea is mortgage brokers have relationships with all sorts of different banks, and they can really start to customize a mortgage plan that can help suit you and your personal situation. And if you would like a mortgage broker for yourself, I have put some links in the description below. And another reason why getting a pre-approval from the bank before you start looking to buy your first home is so important is because then you can avoid looking at properties that are outside of your budget. And once you actually do start looking for a home, you can actually start to make offers on places because you know that those places are within your budget. And if your financing falls through within the settlement period, and this is generally 8 weeks after you've signed the contracts to buy your first home, you could actually lose your whole deposit, which could be upwards of $50,000, which is a lot of money. I personally know people that have lost their whole deposits because their financing fell through. So this is definitely something that you don't want to happen to you. So now that you have your home loan pre-approved, the next step is looking for homes, which is the fun part. And I have a really handy tool that can make this process a lot more smooth. So I like searching for properties on realestate.com.au, and I use the map feature because I find it really easy to visualize things. So let's say, for example, my budget is from $700,000 to $900,000, and I'm looking for an apartment and unit. Then I click on search, and as you can see, there are quite a few things that have popped up within my criteria. So as you can see here, this is a 2-bedroom apartment. I can look through it, and let's say, for example, I really like this one, can actually start adding it to my wish list. And I can create a new collection. So let's say I'm going to change this to apartments, 700K to 900K. And I honestly love this feature because I can zoom out and I can see all of the apartments that are available within that budget. And it makes it really easy to see when new apartments pop up within my criteria, so you don't miss any opportunities. Generally, when you start looking for a property, you might start really broad and start looking at a bunch of different properties in lots of different areas. But once you start to get to know the market a bit more and you start keeping tabs on the properties that you've had a look at and see what prices they actually sell for, then you can start narrowing down your criteria and start to know which areas are actually within your budget. Because sometimes, unfortunately, real estate agents sometimes list some properties for really cheap prices so that they can get a lot of people to look at the property and inspect the property and hopefully fall in love with the property in the hopes that this could push up the property price even more. When in reality, some of these agents know that these properties would never sell for those prices anyway. So that's one thing to be mindful of. Once you start narrowing down the type of property that you want and the types of areas that you're really looking to buy in, that's when you can really start to get closer to buying your first home. Something else that I do when I'm adding a property to my collection is I like to put in the price guide. So let's say, for example, I'm going to save this property to my collection. I can actually add a little note here and say auction guide 900K to 950. Because sometimes real estate agents can change the auction guides or the price guides depending on the demand that there is in the market. So this can kind of help me keep tabs on whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. If I see a lot of properties within my collection that had price guides that are really, really low, but then they sold for way over the price guide, then I know that it's a bit more of a seller's market. And when I am looking for properties, I should probably look at prices below the budget that I really have. So then I'm able to bid a little bit more and hopefully secure that property. And if the reverse happens, let's say, for example, there are properties listing for a certain price and they're actually selling for the price that they're listed for or even below the price that they're listed for, then I know that it's potentially a buyer's market and I have a little bit of wiggle room within the properties that I'm looking for. So I could potentially put in a lower bid than the asking price and still maybe even secure the property. It's a really good idea to use these collections because then you can start to look and see what kind of properties have sold and what the prices are. So once you've started narrowing down a few properties that you really like, the next step is to actually start visiting those properties. And sometimes the property in real life can look completely different to the pictures that you see online. I've even noticed some of the photos nowadays even have some sort of AI or touch-ups done to the photos so they can look even more different in real life. So that's why it's really important to inspect a property in person just to see what it's really like. And then you can also start to get an understanding of what the kind of vibe is for the property and what the area is like, and even what your potential neighbors could be like. When you're inspecting the the property, it's a really good idea to start writing some notes when you are looking at the property, potentially even bringing a checklist to mark off some of the checklist items, just so that you can remember what it was like to visit the property. You can do this within the Notes app on your phone, or you could even do it within the real estate tool that I was showing you in the little notes section. Some things that you should be looking at when you are inspecting the property are making sure that it has lots of natural light, making sure that there are no big cracks in the building, or any mold or water stains or corrosion, or any other potential issues with the property. When you inspect these properties, it's also a good idea to start talking to the real estate agent. Get to know who is selling the property and why they're selling the property in the first place. And if you're interested in the property, you can even ask the real estate agent if they've had any offers on the property yet, or if you could request a copy of the contract to have a look at, or if the real estate agent has given any contracts to any other potential buyers. Another important question to ask is if the property has any problems. You should be able to uncover any problems with the property by doing your own research, but it's also a good idea to ask the real estate agent just to see if there are any things that you should be looking out for. Something that I noticed when I was looking to buy a property was there was a property for sale, and the reason why it had been up for sale was because there was quite a lot of leaking in the garages. So a lot of people were actually selling in that block because there was leaking in the garage, because they were imposing a levy on all of the owners in that building to fix the leak. So that's something to be aware of. So once you've found a property that you're really interested in, the next step is to start gathering all of your reports. So you can ask the real estate agent for a copy of the contract, which you can review with your solicitor, just to make sure that everything looks good. If you're looking for an apartment, a townhouse, or a villa, you can even get a copy of the strata report, and this can help you uncover whether this complex has any issues, because it will all be noted in the strata report. You can also understand how much money is in the admin fund or the sinking fund, which is basically a fund that all owners contribute to so that they can fix and maintain the properties. If it's a house, townhouse, or villa, another really good idea is to get a building and pest inspection. The cost of a building and pest inspection really depends on the size of the property that you're looking to buy. Sometimes you'll have to organize a building and pest inspection to be done on the property yourself, or sometimes it can be provided to you by the real estate agent because they've already contracted a company to do it themselves. So it all depends. Another really good report to get is a microburbs report, and this is to understand the area that you're buying into and if there are any other developments going on in the area. So once you've gathered all these reports, it's a good idea to start having a look at them yourself, and also hiring a conveyancer or a solicitor to help you look at the contracts. A conveyancer or solicitor can help you have a look through the contract just to make sure that the contract is fairly standard and there aren't any nasty surprises in the contract before you sign it. This next step is optional, but I highly recommend doing it if you are a first home buyer and you've never been to an auction before, and that is hiring a buyer's agent to bid for you at an auction. Something that I didn't know is that you can actually hire a buyer's agent just to bid for you at an auction. I actually ended up doing this because I didn't have a lot of experience going to auctions, and hiring this buyer's agent was honestly the best money that I've ever spent. I spent around $500 to hire this buyer's agent to bid for me at the auction, and we did set a limit with the buyer's agent just so that he knew exactly how much he could bid and what our max price was. The reason why getting a buyer's agent to help bid for you at auction is a really good idea is because auctions can be quite stressful situations if you've never been to one before, and the auctioneer and the real estate agents are literally there to try and sell the property for the maximum price that they can. So if you're a first home buyer and you're not very experienced with auctions, it can be really easy to overbid at an auction, especially if the property is within your price range. Let's say, for example, you go to an auction and your max price is $800,000 and the property is well within your budget. It can be really easy to accidentally overbid by $20,000 or $50,000 because you don't have the right experience. A buyer's agent that has been to many auctions before will be able to read the room and know when certain people have hit their max budgets and when to actually slow down the bids and just bid $1,000 extra.
A buck.
I have a buck. I have $1, $1 there. $1, $2, sold for a buck.
Instead of going up by $5,000, $10,000 or $20,000 increments. Even though hiring a buyer's agent to bid for you at auction is an extra expense and can cost you $500, it could potentially save you quite a lot of money over the long run. If you're not really interested in looking for a property yourself and you would also like to hire a buyer's agent to help you find a property, you can also do that. To search for properties, a buyer's agent generally charges between 1.5% to 3% of the purchase price of a property. And if you're looking to hire a buyer's agent to bid for you at an auction or potentially help you find a property, I have put some links in the description below. So depending on the property that you're looking to buy, it could be for sale, which means you need to make an offer to the real estate agent, or it could be a property that goes at an auction. If the property that you're looking to buy is for sale, then it's a good idea to get in touch with the real estate agent and start to get a gauge on how much you would like to offer for this place. It's also a good idea to make sure that your offer isn't too low and it is within a fair value of the place. You obviously don't want to overpay for the property, but you also don't want to offend the real estate agent or the owners at the same time. The real estate agent and the owner probably already has a good idea of what this property is worth and how much they're willing to sell it for. So the idea with making an offer is you want to start low, but not too low, and then you kind of meet in the middle between what you would like to buy the property for and what the owner would like to sell the property for. So congratulations, the owner has accepted your offer or you have won the auction. The next step is settlement. And in this step, you usually have to make a deposit for the place. Generally, this is 5% or 10% of the purchase price. And like I said earlier, that's why it's so crucial to make sure that your finances are set up before you make an offer on the place, because you can lose this whole 5 or 10% deposit if your financing falls through within the settlement period. The settlement period is usually from 6 to 8 weeks. And if you buy the property at an auction, there's generally no cooling off period. So once you sign that contract, it's unconditional. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you have a solicitor or a conveyancer really look through the contract just to make sure that it all looks good. And you've read the strata report or the building and pest inspection report just to make sure that you really know what you're getting into. One of our friends was actually looking to buy a property and he made an offer on a place, signed the contracts and everything and paid his deposit, but unfortunately his financing fell through and he lost his whole $100,000 deposit, which is a lot of money. So I definitely do not want this to happen to you. So once you've paid your deposit and your financing goes through and you're all settled on your new property purchase, the very next step is moving in. Keep in mind that when you do buy a property, there'll always be something wrong with it. There is no such thing as a perfect property. Some tips that I have for moving is I don't think it's a good idea to pay for boxes because you can generally find them for free on Facebook Marketplace. Or you could even go to stores like Bunnings and actually get boxes for free. This is also probably better for the planet because you're reusing boxes that already exist rather than buying brand new boxes. Another tip is to make sure that you're all packed and ready to go on your moving day. If you do choose to hire movers, packing all of your things in boxes before the removalists get there can also help you speed up the process. So that's it, you're now ready to go off and buy your very first home, and I am so excited for you. And don't forget, if you would like to check out the budgeting tool that I've created that I honestly wish I had when I was looking to buy my first home, you can check out Bill-Roo down in the description below. And write us a comment below with the word buyer in it, just so that we know you watched this video all the way through.
Thank you.
Bye.